Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Football Goons podcast for our Week 15 preview. Hopefully you had a great last week of the fantasy season, or you won your playoff matchups this past weekend. Or if you're like us during Monday Night Football here, you're pretty aggravated that as you're speaking, Dalvin Cook just gashed the Seahawks because you need him to be terrible.
Sweating it out.
Full disclosure, I'm expecting to lose. I'm just trying not to get my hopes up. But listen, it was a wild weekend overall, so we're going to have a ton to discuss here moving forward. But first, we're going to have some fun right out of the gate here tonight. And we kind of had been talking the last couple of weeks, and at this point, like, there's not a ton to go over as far as guys that are coming off waivers for the week. Like, we'll touch on some important situations, obviously, but if you're having to pick up like Chris Ivory at this point, like, you're probably still not actually playing anyway. So we're not really going to dive into the importance of, Chris Ivory potentially getting a start. We'll talk about waiver related stuff in a bit, but what we want to do here is have some fun. And I came up with a little trivia contest here. And these guys have no idea at all what we're going to be discussing. They're really aggravated about it because they don't like to not have an idea. The way this is going to work is we're going to have 2 rounds. Each goon's going to get a question. We're going to tally the scores. And if there's any kind of tie after those 2 rounds, then we'll go to a tiebreaker. It'll be like our lightning round, and I'll tell you how that's going to work. The topic here is this date in NFL history.
If you say Carson Wentz, I'm going to kill somebody.
Not going to say Carson Wentz. All right. But listen, don't start speculating or anything more than that, or Google or anything like that. This is going to just be this date in NFL history, a variety of dates. It's really not going to be super hard. You can play along with us if you're watching live on YouTube here as well. Try and get your answers in and beat the goons here. Or if you're listening after the fact, we'll see how much you knew. So, all right, first question here, and I'm just going to go in order of how I'm seeing you guys here. So I've got Rocco first up. All right, so on this date in NFL history, December 10th, 1989, this Seahawk makes his then NFL record 100th touchdown catch in a 24-17 win over the Bengals.
Steve Largent.
Steve Largent is correct. And you'll notice here, I'm not sticking with solely just December 10th because, yeah, we're recording this on December 10th, but we've got a whole week here to cover. So I have one question from every day for this week. So, all right. So Deal, you're next here. You're round 1. I know how pumped you are to be doing this.
I hate this so much.
I gave you an appropriate question here. Okay. Because on December 11th, 1960, this Colts Hall of Fame quarterback snaps his 47 consecutive game streak of throwing a touchdown in a 10-3 loss to Los Angeles.
Johnny Unitas.
Johnny Unitas is correct. 47 straight games at that point.
I'm still not having fun. Just in
That
case
was the record for a long time too, because Breeze just broke that like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long-standing record. So far so good here. 2 for 2. Round 2 gets a little tougher, but not overwhelmingly tougher. This is just still meant to have some fun here. So, all right, Miles, December 12th, 1982. The Patriots defeat the Dolphins 3-0. What was so memorable about this specific game?
That's the question I get.
This is tough, yeah.
He gets Steve Largent and Johnny Unitas. All right, 82.
You'll kick yourself, but
December something, 1982.
December 12th, 1982.
Pats 3. Who?
Dolphins 0.
You don't even know what teams are. Just move along.
I'm gonna say it's the only 3-0 game ever.
Can I register a guess?
That is not correct. I'll let Rocco guess.
I don't know if this is correct, but is that the last game of the strike shortened year?
No, it's a lot simpler than this, but this was the game where a snowplow was used on the field to clear the spot for the Patriots kicker, which was highly controversial at the time. The snowplow driver came out and cleared the spot for the game-winning field goal attempt. So it was a Belichickian move long before the Belichickian era. So that one was a little tougher. I thought that was going to be.
I definitely. This is under protest already. They get questions about Hall of Fame football players. I got a snowplow.
All right, this one's going to be. Your last one is a layup, so I'll give you that one. This one's going to be tough for Rocco.
I'll start thinking about shovels.
Yeah, think more rock salt. All right, Rocco, December 13th, 1998. Which two teams set an NFL record with 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown in a single game? And here's a hint. All 3 were in the first quarter.
Woo, 1998, huh? I'm going to go 1998. I'm going to go Falcons and Chiefs.
That's going to be wrong. This one was a really, really hard one. I didn't expect anybody was going to get this. Does anybody have an idea?
Oh.
There is a little bit of a theme tied into this because
I like Tim Dwight, and I don't know if Dante Hall was there yet. But
well, I was going with
what's the question one more time, Seth?
Which two teams set an NFL record with 3 kickoff returns for a touchdown in a single game? All of them were in the first quarter. There is a kind of a theme to some of these questions because I tried to include the teams currently playing a little bit as much as I could.
Ooh, Seahawks and Vikings.
It was the Vikings and the Ravens. Crazy that 3 in a game and they were all in the first quarter as well.
Yeah,
that's kind of insane. All right, Deal. Here's your second question. This former Giant and Hall of Fame broadcaster kicks a game-winning field goal as time expires against the Browns on December 14th, 1958.
I have no idea. I don't know anything about kickers, man.
He wasn't really a kicker, though, right? He was a dual guy.
He was more of an athlete. So
yeah,
I have no idea. Don't even have a guess.
Go
Frank
ahead,
Gifford?
No.
Oh, really?
No. The one and only Pat Summerall.
Oh.
Yeah, Pat Summerall kicks the game winner against the Browns. All right,
I mean, was he like 84 back then?
I don't know. As long as he had those velvety pipes, I don't really care.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you credit on that.
Silky smooth.
All right, Miles, this is how you probably will tie this up. All right. Just to be fair here, I did give everybody a tougher question. December 15th, 1997, the 49ers retire number 16 in honor of this Hall of Fame player.
Joe Montana.
Joe Montana is correct.
I said Joe Montana.
I love the varying difficulty levels. I know you can't control what happened on each day, but
no, history.
Something else happened on that day. I mean,
just not quite as worthwhile, I guess I would say. All right, so we've got a lightning round here, and the way this is going to work, we're just going to go with, I'm going to read the question. You have to wait until the question is finished for it to count. But the first hand that I see go up is going to be able to give an answer. All right. So no cheating. If you get your hand up too early, I'm not going to allow it. Here we go. December 16th, 1973. This running back becomes the first ever to rush for 2,000 yards in a season. Deal. O.J. Simpson is the correct answer.
O.J. did it.
In that case, I think he would agree. All right, so
am I allowed to say that? I'm not. No,
I mean, you just did. So
you didn't mute me, so I'm still talking.
I mean, you just did. So all right. Well, listen, that was a little bit of fun out of the gate here tonight. So listen, we may do that again. Yeah, just going forward.
No,
just to kind
let's
of
never do that again.
But what we might do is everybody else could have a turn kind of hosting it. So we'll see. And it won't necessarily.
I'll host.
Yeah. And it won't necessarily be like a this date in history kind of thing because I didn't want anyone to be able to prep for it. So, All right, real quickly here before we dive into fantasy things, let's talk about our friends at Gorb. They help us to make this show happen every single week. For those of you that have been watching with us on YouTube along the way, first of all, we appreciate you checking us out. But You also probably noticed that behind us, we've got these sweet backdrops that give us the reminder about what Gorb is all about. And their message is get hungry or be hungry. And what that's all about is as simple as it sounds. You could either get hungry and go after your dreams, try and achieve your goals, do those things that really fuel you, that you're passionate about, or you can be hungry and always wish that you would have went for it. It's as simple as that. The hashtag Gorb has been all over social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all over the place. You see people modeling the clothing. There's always some inspirational stories to go along with it as well. And really, it's just a great reminder that in life, you've got those two choices. You can either get hungry or be hungry. Check them out at gorb.com. That's GHORBH.com. They've got all kinds of great apparel this time of the year. The hoodies. We love the hoodies. They're great quality. They look good. They feel good. They've got t-shirts, hats, all kinds of other stuff for you to check out as well. Gorb.com, GHORBH.com. All right, let's talk some fantasy football here and some NFL talk leading into week 15 here. As I mentioned, there's not necessarily like a ton that you're probably scraping after on the waiver wire. But at the running back position, given, that some guys are banged up, you might have lost a starter last week. If you had to pick on waivers one running back this week to be the most productive, who would it be? Elijah McGuire, Damian Williams, Chris Ivory, or Justin Jackson?
Yeah, for me, I kind of hate this. Look, I like when you give us questions with obvious answers, obviously. Then second, I like when it's a hard question because you like a lot of the guys. I hate these matchups so much.
Yeah.
And it's not that I hate the players, because I really don't. They've all been productive pretty recently. The matchups are scary. McGuire's got the Texans. Ivory's against Detroit, who, those of you paying attention, they're not a green matchup anymore ever since Snacks Harrison got there. They're tough. And then Williams and Jackson, they're facing off Thursday, which is scary, and are in timeshares. So, I mean, for me, I would keep an eye on Crowell's injury. If he is out, for me, it would be Elijah McGuire. Even against a really tough Texans defense, he's the more explosive player between him and Ivory, who are kind of the guys that will dominate the touches a little bit more. So I'd go with Elijah McGuire. Scored a touchdown last week. That's where my head would be here.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bailing me out on that because I didn't put it on the agenda, the matchups there, but I did write them down and for some reason still didn't bother to read them for you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I listen, I went with Elijah McGuire, not to be the homer of the group, but I'm glad Miles went first so I didn't look like one. No, honestly, like they all have tough matchups, and I think like the Jets are going to be honestly the most consistent in trying to run the ball and protect Sam and not get him killed by that front seven of Houston. I don't like the matchups for either of the guys playing Thursday night, especially with the news that there's an outside chance Melvin Gordon might play. So you got Justin Jackson in a timeshare already, and then you might add him to like a triple timeshare if Melvin Gordon does decide to suit up. And then Chris Ivory, listen, we've had extensive talks about him. I'm never going to trust that, as long as I live. So I'm out on that. So I would go McGuire this week as well.
Yeah, I also said McGuire. It's close, but basically for the same reason that he's going to get the most touches. I mean, the Texans have been scored on, I think, 3 weeks in a row by running backs now. I know 2 weeks with Chubb and with Marlon Mack this week. I think that, I mean, that was the game that Derrick Henry had like 14 touchdowns, was it? Or no? No, that was a week before. But anyways, they've been scored on a lot recently, and I like him to at least have a touchdown. Even if none of the four have a big day as far as yardage goes, I like him to have the best chance to score.
Yeah, I went with McGuire here as well.
Wow.
Look, here's the thing. Like, you don't know what you're getting out of a potential Chris Ivory. I don't know whether or not Justin Jackson is going to be the lead dog there. If I knew that Melvin Gordon wasn't going to play, I'd be a little more intrigued by him, obviously. I still might be. We'll get to that in a couple questions here. But and then Damian Williams, like, yeah, he had a productive day, but like really other than the specific goal line carries, Spencer Ware was still very clearly the lead dog there as far as yardage. He still had 20 touches in the game. So I don't know that with a better matchup against the Chargers this week, you're going to have like those, 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yard to go situations as much, where Damian Williams is going to be able to be more effective with limited carries. So that's why I went with McGuire. He's going to have a ton of touches. We kind of already touched on that all individually. So I just think that at this point, you're just looking for the volume if you're looking for one of these guys. All right, interesting question here that I actually heard debated in public today. And one of the guys who was kind of debating through this is a frequent listener. So I decided to throw this out to you guys because it's a pretty interesting question. Which running back do you want to own more stock in next year? Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey? Rock, I know you're dying to say it. So
I mean, your face, just go.
No, I'm actually like trying to get a read of the room. This to me is like a 6 of one, half dozen in the other, to be honest with you. I like Saquon a lot. I think he's the more talented player. I like McCaffrey's role in the offense as, this year he really became pretty much the lead dog in that offense. He's obviously got the most carries. He's become very trustworthy for Cam, so he's getting the catches. And, Saquon is still going to have to battle through, getting Odell touches, working other guys in, who their quarterback is going to be, if it's going to be Eli or if they're going to move on from Eli after the offseason. There's a lot of question marks surrounding the Giants that I don't think there are as many surrounding the Panthers. But Saquon's the much more talented player. So, what do you like? A sure thing or the potential of a second season breakout, compared to what we just saw from Saquon Barkley, which was amazing. So I'm actually going to lean with the talent aspect, and I'm going to go SP12, but it's so close.
Man, I'll actually – it's funny because you gave my answer as well. I'm not hiding my feelings towards Saquon next year. I'm going to really struggle to even have him RB2 behind Todd Gurley. But I don't agree with the talent thing. I mean, yes, okay, we're going crazy with Saquon's God's gift and the next great running back. Like, Christian McCaffrey's incredible, and he has been ever since we first heard of him. Now,
we're not calling him the same athlete as Saquon Barkley, are we? I don't think that was ever a question.
Because he doesn't hurdle people. He just runs past them. Because Saquon does too, but they run very, very differently. Am I right, South? Is that kind of where you're going here?
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, it's because we don't have to sit there and listen to some broadcaster who was a previous fullback spend 4 hours talking about the size of Christian McCaffrey's quads. Like, we're not enamored with him physically. So I think some of the draw to Saquon Barkley is the physicality of it. Like, but when you look at what they're doing on the field, it's eerily similar, especially from a fantasy standpoint. They're 7 points separated right now. Yep. And if I would have brought that to the table like week 5, when Christian McCaffrey was struggling, quite frankly, not scoring a ton, and said to you that, hey, this time 10 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about McCaffrey and Barkley without any injuries in the same breath. Like, it would have been pretty crazy.
Yeah. For me, go ahead.
Well, it's just, I mean, the eerily similar thing, 13 touchdowns each is kind of what I'll always point to. I like the guys that are going to score. The reason I like them, they're RB2 and 3 right now in half PPR, is the volume is there. And the reason I'll side Saquon is we can all sit here and drool about Christian McCaffrey's volume. Saquon has 30 more carries to this point and only 3 fewer targets. So you look at Christian McCaffrey as that PPR guy that also, not PPR like Gio Bernard, but, the volume-based running back who also is going to get a ton of catches. He only has 3 more targets than Saquon Barkley. So that's why I'm going to lean there. He's got 27, almost 3 more opportunities a game than Christian McCaffrey has.
Yeah, I like that to rise. That's really my big point is I thought Christian McCaffrey was going to not be as good this season as he is. I thought he was going to have a good season, not this good, along with 99.9% of the world. And then it's like Christian McCaffrey believed him in, his mom, and Rocco. So that's like the end of the list there. So he's –
and maybe
Ed. he's outperforming what everybody expected. He's phenomenal, but Saquon still has more yards than him, and I don't think we've seen the best Saquon yet. I think this is the best CMC we're going to get. Again, I could be wrong. I didn't think he was going to be this good, but I think this is really the peak of the mountain here. I think we haven't even touched what Saquon can do.
Yeah, but if this is the peak of CMC's mountain, let's say, but he stays
awesome.
on this, if he stays on this peak for 2 to 3 more years, I mean, that's
awesome.
That's incredible.
Yep, absolutely. That's not the question. It's not who else would I take ahead of CMC. It's I would take Saquon by a lot.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if it's by a lot because
that's my only problem with your wording.
It is.
I pick Saquon, but I can't say by a lot.
That's by a lot to me.
My biggest gripe,
by the way, it's a good bet for me too.
I mean, if they're both there, not even a little bit of my being will be challenged to take CMC. Not even a little bit.
And I think both of us, in saying that, a little later in round 1, are thrilled to death to have McCaffrey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just not if Saquon's on the board.
And I'll actually spin this a little more. Sorry, Sal, to take more time.
That's fine.
If I'm, 3 spots back from there, 4 spots back from there, I think I might like Christian McCaffrey and who I'm going to get more than Saquon and who I'm going to get. So that's a different part of the question, but I think I like that better.
Yeah, for sure. And the reason why I say that I think it's closer than that is because when we go into time to pre-rank these guys, like if you have Saquon as 2, that's fine, but I don't think you're going to have McCaffrey much further than like a 6, maybe 7. So, I mean, that's why I don't think it's that much of a huge drop off, but you're right. Like for me, I'm still taking Barkley if I'm given the choice. But it is still close just because I don't feel confident that Carolina isn't going to have a lot of turnover this offseason. For them to just tank the second half of the season the way they have, like, there's going to be some coaching changes there. You don't know quite what that's going to do to the coaching philosophy. I mean, on paper, it would seem like, hey, we still have to get this guy the ball, but we all thought that about David Johnson too.
Right.
So, like, I mean, that's not something that you could just kind of sweep under the rug and not worry about anymore when you're drafting a guy as your number 1 pick, especially.
Yeah.
All right, so another question here relating to the running back position. If Melvin Gordon is activated for Thursday night this week, is it a no-brainer to start him?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, considering obviously that it's playoff matchups.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nerve-wracking, and I'm speaking as somebody who I mean, it's not official because the game's not over, but I'm winning by like 25 and my opponent's done. I'm playing Deal next week in the semifinals of our league of record, and I have Melvin Gordon, and it'll be nerve-wracking to go ahead and suit him up and put him in the starting lineup, even if he's active, because you never know with this MCL. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm going to hate it if he gets 2 carries and goes down, but ultimately I'm not going to let myself get knocked out of the playoffs because I sat Melvin Gordon. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is the reason I would start him, no question, because they just won 2 in a row, 2 big games that could have cost them maybe a playoff run without him. So if they're playing him, he has to be healthy. Like, you're not going to run him out there against the Chiefs to get crushed if he's not healthy and then ruin the rest of your season. So, yeah, I'm confident in starting him.
And when you say against the Chiefs, that's the other part I'm like excited about because, it's a knee ligament and opponent doesn't matter. But I'm a lot more wary throwing a who knows if he's healthy guy out there against Seattle or, not that Seattle's been Seattle of old, but Chicago, one of these defenses where it's like, gosh, even if he is good to go, I'm looking at 65 yards and praying to God he scores. And if he's healthy, he should smash.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm kind of leaning with you, Miles, because I do have him in one of my leagues, obviously, and it's also a team that, like, I'm dealing with a Tyreek Hill injury right now. I lost Kareem Hunt. There's other players that are questionable and banged up. So, I mean, if they activate him and they say he's a full go, to me, I mean, that gives you every indication that they intend to use him.
Yeah.
So, and considering the fact that now Eckler is very unlikely, very doubtful at this point to go on a short week, and all he really has behind him is Justin Jackson. I'm expecting that if they're going to activate him, they're going to use him. He's going to be available in the passing game. He's going to be their guy at the goal line as usual. I will take that chance that they do something totally wacky and unexpected and give him like 10 touches for the whole game, because the upside of it, if he plays, is enormous against the Chiefs. Like that's a lick your lips kind of matchup this week. So, Rock, any thoughts on Melvin Gordon?
I mean, you guys nailed it. I mean, you're not going to sit a stud and risk losing the playoffs because he went off, especially given the great matchup. And it's just one of those things where you probably rode him the whole season to get to this point. If he's healthy, it's at worst you'll probably get 10 to 12 touches, but he's explosive enough to do something with those 10 to 12. You know, and at best, if Eckler's not in, then it's a timeshare with him and Justin Jackson, and I'm all for that.
All right, so now that we've seen them all play, at least some, keeping in mind, obviously, that the teams aren't, where they need to be as far as building a team around them, let's go back and re-rank the rookie quarterback class based solely on the little glimpse that we've been given so far. Now, look, we're the kind of people that will all tell you 3 years from now, let's have this conversation and see who's what. This is strictly just for fun at this point, because some people in this conversation are already ready to drop their rookie quarterback for another one because he ran for a couple yards. So let's have this conversation based on basically what you've seen so far. Rank Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson.
First of all, I never freaking said that. I never said it. And I'm rocking the Darnold tonight, and out of respect for the fact that we saw his first ever fourth quarter comeback game-winning drive. All right. With that being said, for me, it's still Baker number one. I know that out of these five, he's probably had the most to work with in terms of having a solid running game, having more than one solid running back behind him. You had Hyde in the beginning, and now Chubb and Duke Johnson are a nice combo for him to have. And he's got talented wide receivers. Jarvis just went off this week. He's had his ups and downs like any rookie QB would, but he's definitely been the most consistent out of all five of the rookie quarterbacks. Two, I went Sam. Listen, he's had really great moments and he's had really crappy moments, and the phantom foot issue for the last couple of weeks, but he has the least to work with, in my opinion, out of all five of these guys. And I don't think it's close. So given the fact that he's got no offensive line and no number one wide receiver, no really reliable number one back, and he's still been productive at points, he was my two. And then I went Allen just because of the running passing ability that he's giving his team. He's winning games that nobody thought he would win, like early on in the season in Minnesota. Lamar Jackson next, and then Josh Rosen last. I think that Rosen was supposed to be the most pro-ready. He has an all-pro back in David Johnson. He's got an all-time wide receiver in Larry Fitzgerald. Yes, later on in his career, but he's still Larry Fitzgerald, and he's done the least with actual weapons. So Mayfield, Darnold, Allen, Jackson, Rosen.
You think Darnold really has dealt with less than Allen at this point?
Yeah, I disagree with that by a lot.
Oh yeah, I don't.
Rock, before the season you came in, and all we were doing was bragging about the Jets being the first team with 4 800-yard receivers ever.
Yeah,
just because it hasn't worked out does not. That's still not even a receiving core in Buffalo. It doesn't even count.
I understand that, but we cut one of those guys. Pryor is gone.
No, I don't care what the front office did or the lack of performance. There is no way you can genuinely look at me and say the players on the Bills are better than the players on the Jets at the skill position.
Curse would be the one on the Jets, and he's like your 4 at times.
The Bills, yeah. You're saying on the Bills.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not trying to jump on Darnold. I have him third. I agree. Listen, nothing else needs to be said. Baker Mayfield's number one. If you're not thinking he's number one right now, you're a fan of one of these teams and you're a homer. Like South said, he may not end up being one, but he's one now.
Yeah.
I totally agree that Rosen is 5. he's throwing. It's 2018, and he's throwing for 191 yards and 1 touchdown per game. That's atrocious. And like you said,
with receivers,
with all pros
Yeah.
on his offense. So they're the last ranked offense in the league. I'm not excited about that. Then for me, I think the ballot's out on the other guys. I went Allen 2, Darnold 3, Jackson 4, because that's the reverse order of the weapons I think they have to work with. I think Allen's team is the worst, so I have him 2. Darnold's in the middle, that's 3. And Lamar Jackson has the best team around him, so he's 4.
You think
the best team that's not the Cardinals, you mean? Or you think he has the best weapons, period?
Of the 3. Of the Bills, Jets, and Ravens. I think the Ravens have the best skill guys of those 3 teams.
Are we taking the offensive lines into account here at all? Like,
I mean, yes and no. Like this is a tough question, and South kind of hinted at it as he addressed it. You know, we have on all these guys, we have a very limited sample size. Like Lamar Jackson's got 4 starts, but he is 3-1. So you got to give him some credit for that. But also, I think the way that Buffalo and Baltimore are winning is not. You're not doing that for a decade. Like Lamar Jackson's not going to go 12-4 running for 1,300 yards every year.
No,
he's got 4 starts. He's got 4 starts, and he's thrown about 4 passes.
Right. So I mean, the thing I do like about Darnold is and even Rosen, while they're taking their lumps and it's not been pretty, they both have more picks than touchdowns. They're learning the way they're going to have to win in the NFL, whereas Allen and Jackson are going the route of rookie Mike Vick and Vince Young. And listen, it worked for Mike Vick for a long time, to an extent at least. It didn't work for Vince Young very long. So they have to decide this offseason in film study and progressing with their guys which path their career is going to take.
Yeah, I actually have the exact same lineup as you. I have Mayfield, Allen, Darnold, Jackson, Rosen. Mayfield's far and above number 1. Rosen's far and above number 5 for me. The middle guys are kind of a mess. I personally was a believer in Allen pre-draft. I thought he was going to be a good quarterback. Similar to Darnold, he's had moments where he looks good, and then he's had moments where he looks like he's throwing to Ray McLeod and Zay Jones. So I just think that he has nothing to work with, and he's still been at least somewhat productive. He's not going to be a 70% completion guy ever in his career, but if he can keep this athleticism, I like him close by Mayfield.
I think my biggest problem with that argument though is that like we just don't see guys succeed for long periods. Like Michael Vick would be the only one, and he had a nice little break in his career where he wasn't getting hit so much.
He'd call it a nice little break.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice.
How was very diplomatic.
Yeah, I'm trying to be nice and leave it PG. He had a nice little break in the middle of his career. We just haven't seen a guy like Josh Allen do what he's doing and be successful for a long period of time.
Also similar to Mike Vick, I don't think he wants to be doing this. He doesn't want to be running for 150 yards a game.
No, not at all. And I think that what it's going to come down to is when you start to see that they put like an actual NFL team around him.
I don't know if they're going to. That's a problem.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We got to assume they're going to try.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they're able to at least try and start putting some playmakers around them and maybe get some, actual wide receivers who they didn't literally bring over the falls from the CFL.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, there's something to be said for a guy who's just making things happen with the caliber of team that he's playing with. And I get that, like, it's not really equating to a ton of wins, but they're in every game.
Yeah, we didn't expect them to have a ton of wins.
No.
Right.
They have
more than we thought.
Yeah. I said it's about the weapons, and it kind of is, but it is also about, while it's not sustainable, he has impressed the second most to this point. So.
All right. Sorry, I muted myself there for a second for some reason. So, all right, next question here. So, with the potential for 2 major fantasy studs to be out at wide receiver this week, in Odell Beckham and Tyreek Hill. Now, after we did the agenda here, we did hear from Andy Reid that he expects Tyreek to be a go. So we'll see there, obviously. Who's the most appealing streamer play this weekend at the wide receiver position. We've got Cortland Sutton versus the Browns, Sterling Shepard versus the Titans, Dante Pettis versus the Seahawks, or Josh Reynolds versus the Eagles.
Yeah, this is kind of the opposite of the running back question. I do actually like several of these guys.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to chalk it up to a lost week last week, but I'm going to remind everyone there's a reason that we all sprinted out to grab Cortland Sutton when the Emmanuel Sanders news broke, if he wasn't already owned in your league, because he had that potential when Demaryius was traded. Cleveland secondary, not great, and Richard Sherman, pretty great still. So while the athleticism has gone down, a guy like Richard Sherman is going to take advantage of a rookie receiver this past week. And credit to Case Keenum, he saw that and only targeted Cortland 6 times, and he went after Tim Patrick and Deshaun Hamilton a ton more. So I think this is the week that kind of turns around. And again, we keep saying this every week. There's like a sneaky high over-under. This could be a high-scoring game between Cleveland and Denver this week. So I do like Cortland Sutton. He's my answer here. That said, I like Josh Reynolds. I like Pettis. Sterling Shepard, I'm a little bit less up on against Tennessee. It's a really tough defense, but I do like the other 3.
I'm a little nervous about Cortland's thighs still. You know, he left from that game and still questionable. So I don't know that he's going to be full strength. All things even, I probably would have said him, but since they're not, I went with Pettis. He's scored 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks, scored 3 consecutive weeks, hasn't had less than 6 targets since week 10. Yeah, missed week 11, but 10, 12, 13, 14, 6 targets, 7, 7, 7. He's catching it. He's getting production in the yards, 77, 129, and 49, and he's scoring touchdowns. So I like him the most here.
I went Sutton also. My biggest thing with that is just the amount of volume that he's going to get or should get as the number 2 receiver there. Whereas you got a guy like Reynolds, who's, yes, he's a nice productive player for them, but he's still the number 3 option behind a very, very good running game. Shepard, it's just too much up in the air. And I like Pettis a lot too, but the 49ers as a whole have been really inconsistent, and it's not really their fault. They're playing with a 3rd-string quarterback and 4th-string running back and God only knows what else. But so I went Sutton here as well.
Yeah, to your point, I was tempted to just kind of go with the easy cop out here and go with the best quarterback, which in my opinion would be Jared Goff. But I just don't know that based on what we saw last couple of weeks here from the Eagles that they're going to be able to guard Woods or Cooks at all. And like they're probably just going to get toasted from that position. And Goff might not even have to look at Reynolds, to be honest with you. So I'm going with Cortland Sutton here too, just because, look, to Miles's point, like there was a reason why everybody was so quick to try and scoop him up out there because, he is the next man up. And whether or not that's like a super prolific, proficient passing offense, they've been able to run the ball really effectively. So you would expect that if they can establish that against the Browns here this week and get some play action going, that Sutton could benefit from that, obviously. His targets have been up, even last week with a little bit more of an up and down game. He still had 6 targets. Again, it remains to be seen, whether or not he's, 100% at this point. So you take that into consideration. But I just expect that, like Miles said, this is going to be a game where some points are going to be scored. So I like the chance for Sutton to get a touchdown, and I'm going to go with him. All right. I'm throwing this in there as a wild card because I just had this one come over to me. So I'm going to apologize because I know you guys don't like to be unprepared. But real super interesting question that I just saw out there on the interwebs. In their prime, would you take the combination of Gronk and Jimmy Graham or Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz right now?
Oof.
That's tough.
That's real tough. I mean, we consider that Gronk in his prime is the best tight end ever. Who's to say that? Who's to say that Tom Terrific couldn't make those other 2 guys equally as good? Because we're seeing right now that Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz have that relationship, and Zach Ertz is blowing up.
Even beyond that, are we not seeing that Travis Kelce is?
And we haven't even talked about Travis Kelce yet.
That's where I was coming from. I no longer think that prime Gronk is the best tight end ever.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
It's Travis Kelce.
Wow.
He is equally as unguardable as far as using his body as Gronk ever was, and he's twice the athlete.
Yeah,
and more reliable in terms of getting hurt.
He's on the field,
and he's out there, and so is Ertz for the most part. I mean, he had a concussion last year and missed one game. So it's hard for me in a race that's that unbelievably close. It's hard for me to separate the fact that prime Gronk and Graham played with Tom Brady and Drew Brees, two of the top, let's just call it 5 quarterbacks of all time. And we're talking about, gosh, if Mahomes or Wentz, you could tell either of them they're ever going to be in that conversation, they'd both be thrilled to death. Right. Wentz was unreal last year. Mahomes is probably your MVP this year, but they might have both had ceiling seasons. And Kelce and Ertz have both produced for 6 years as incredible tight ends. So I'm going to go with Kelce and Ertz. But it's close. I'm making it sound like it's not close. It's ridiculously close. Yeah. But I'm going to
honestly, I think even prime Jimmy Graham right now is the low end, and that's what makes the difference for me.
And that's nuts.
That is nuts to say. But like you had the best years of your career playing with. You would be nice when you said 5. I'll say top 3 quarterbacks of all time.
I didn't want to start a debate. So
I get it. But you got Breeze throwing to Jimmy Graham for the only real productive parts of his career, and as soon as he's not with Breeze, he's not the same player. So I'll say him being, it's like a 1A, 1B, and then an actual 4th player. You know what I mean? So, which is kind of crazy to think of. So I'll lean Kelce and Ertz also.
That's actually their Hollywood name. I'm going the same. For me, the 2 of them are the epitome of health, and 2 of them aren't healthy. So it's an easy call for me. I mean, it's
generally how you break ties to begin with.
It's easy for me. Yeah,
Travis,
it's a great question though.
Yeah, I just kind of stumbled upon it, just totally looking for something else completely. So, Travis Michael Kelce is 29 years old.
It's crazy,
and he's in probably one of the most prolific offenses we've seen in a long time. As far as production, he's far and away the number 1 tight end right now. Tyreek Hill is the number 2 wide receiver. I think obviously Kareem Hunt was getting his, while he was playing. So there's no worry that the volume isn't going to be there, even with as many great players on that team. I just feel like we might be seeing like the prime right now of the greatest tight end to ever do it, which is crazy to think about. But, I think when we look back on this season and what he was able to do, I think we're going to all start kind of talking about that as we head into next year. Interestingly enough, there was a while where people would consider taking Gronk at the back end of a round 1, beginning of round 2. Based just on stats and what Kelce did, you could make an argument for it. I don't want to open that can of worms because I'm obviously not a fan of it, but you could legitimately make an argument based just on pure scoring.
And he's on the field.
Yeah. So, he's giving you massive wide receiver production.
He had 4 unreal seasons in a row. I mean, his lowest season was 862 and 5 touchdowns, which is phenomenal for a tight end. And now this season is by far his best season of his career. It's crazy.
Right. All right. So another question here that we want to get to, just general football stuff. Other than the Chargers, nobody's really running away right now with the wild card berths. Obviously, right now in the AFC North race is still wide open. So those teams are involved in the wild card as well. The AFC wild card spot, that number 6, spot is kind of wide open right now. A lot of teams still in play. The NFC has 2 wild cards open for the taking, really pending tonight's game. Seattle can kind of put some water under the bridge here, so to speak, for themselves here and take a 2-game lead there if they win. If not, it's going to be chaos, basically. So give me the 4 teams that you think eventually will make the claims of those spots. So AFC North, an AFC wild card, and then the 2 NFC wild cards.
I'll actually say first off, I believe the Chargers are going to buck a trend and they're going to win Thursday night on the road in Kansas City to take that division lead.
Wow.
With or without Melvin?
With or without.
Wow,
and I actually have the Chiefs as a wild card team in the AFC. I do have the Steelers holding on in the AFC North. I have both the Steelers and the Ravens finishing 1-2, but that would obviously keep them there, which actually puts Cleveland, according to my predictions, in second in that division, but the Steelers get the tiebreaker. I do have the Colts winning out and taking the 6th seed to join the Chiefs in the AFC playoffs. Over in the NFC, I think Seattle's a lock. They're the 5 seed. I have them at 10-6. And I have to apologize to the world and more specifically to Deal and Rocco because I'm Mr. AFC football is bad, NFC football rules. I have the 7-8-1 Minnesota Vikings getting the 6th seed in the NFC. I have 5 teams in the NFC with a winning record, 11 with a losing record, and they.
I'm not
get
forgiving you this quickly. It's going to take some time. That's
okay. At least I did the right thing. I did the right thing. Now the ball's in your court.
No, you did do the right thing, and it's funny that you said it because I wasn't going to bring it up because historically I'm not right in this argument. But I was looking at the standings today, going like, "Wow, the AFC is actually better than the NFC this year is in totality."
In totality is right.
But I went. I actually have the Ravens taking over the AFC North and the Steelers not making the playoffs. I don't like their matchups going down the stretch. They could get hot, but that's historically not good against New England. I mean, nobody is, in the last 18 years, but and that alone will drop them down below the Ravens, and I think the Ravens just do enough to win that division. I like the Chargers. I don't think that they overtake the Chiefs fully, so I like them to get the 1 wild card, and I actually like the Colts to take the 2nd wild card as well. Really based on matchups, I'm tempted to go the Dolphins, but the Dolphins have the Vikings. The Dolphins have the Vikings next week, and that's such a toss-up game for me. I think the Vikings are the better team. Who knows if they get a wild ride of momentum after last week in New England. I could see the Dolphins eking that out, and then they actually have 2 relatively easier games down the stretch against the Jaguars and Bills. So I do like the matchups, but I think a loss next week to Minnesota would really hurt. On the NFC side of the ball, I'm out. I don't know what to do. I like the Seahawks, especially given that they're winning this game right now. 3-0, but still. I like them to take the first wild card spot. Gun to my head. I'd probably wind up going the Vikings as well, but I don't even think that's a straight man. For me, it's between the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Packers. One of those teams has to go 2-1 down the stretch to win. I mean, and even at that, you're getting in at 8-8.
I think the Chiefs are still going to win that division. It's going to be close, and if the Chargers win this week, that really puts it all up in the air. But I like the Chiefs to stay there. Chargers to take that number 1 wild card. I mean, it's going to be one of those 2 either way. And then, like I said before, I think the Ravens are going to drop off still. They haven't yet, but I still think they're going to. And I like the Colts to get in there. I like the Colts matchups here coming down the stretch. They played tough this week. Defense played great last week. Offense just couldn't get it done. I like their matchups here with the Cowboys, Titans, and Giants still. Then on the other side, Seahawks, I like to stay there, and the Vikings to stay as well. I like nothing to change in that one.
Yeah, on the AFC side, I think it's a little easier to kind of forecast just because to me, AFC North, I think the Steelers are just going out of control. And that's coming from a guy that 2 weeks ago was saying that this is a team that was scary to me enough, that they could be in the Super Bowl. They've just spiraled out of control completely. Ben gets hurt last week, gets completely cleared to come back into the game. And Tomlin doesn't put him back in the game because he says that he was into the flow of the game. Was the flow of the game just going 3 and out, over and over again for the whole second half?
He's an idiot.
I just don't get it. The whole thing has come unhinged there in Pittsburgh. So I think Baltimore sneaks in there. They've got a winnable game here coming up against Tampa Bay. And then the door's wide open because Pittsburgh probably loses to the Patriots this week. I mean, crazier things have happened. But I don't know. I just think that they win there. Obviously, I think the Chargers are going to take that first wild card spot. And then the second one to me is the Colts. It's almost a no-brainer. Like, look, they had a hiccup against Jacksonville. They did. All right. It was just like the Jags were inspired. They matched up well. They played them well. It's over with. Like, that's the kind of thing that you'll look back on when the playoffs start and you'll say, well, I'm kind of glad that they got their loss out of the way at that point because they got hot. They rode it. They're still a good football team. They just are. The defense is improving every single week. Andrew Luck is just getting better and better. And those weapons are getting more comfortable all around them as well. So I just like them as that second wild card team. In the NFC, honestly, I think the Seahawks probably take that first wild card spot. I think, they're one of the scarier teams, especially if they get hot. If Russell Wilson gets hot, that's a scary proposition there. So I think I still like the Vikings at number 6 just because everything's kind of fallen their way. Like they have the benefit of that tie, which actually works out for them in a lot of tiebreaker scenarios in a weird way. The Packers are not catching them. They're just not. The Bucs are not going to catch them. The Panthers are spiraling out of control. They still have their NFC South schedule remaining. So I don't like them. And I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to win enough games here down the stretch either, or the Redskins. So this is going to be a situation where probably that second wild card in the NFC really just backs in. And I think the Vikings are just good enough to kind of back in at this point. So that's the way I'm seeing it going forward here. All right. Well, hey, believe it or not, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. We want to wish everybody good luck, obviously, here in week 15. Most of you are in the fantasy playoffs, so good luck in your matchups. May all the clicks be in your favor. You make the right decisions. And hopefully not a lot of touchdown vulturing this week as we had last week. So be sure to keep up with us, facebook.com/footballgoons, @footballgoons on Twitter. And obviously here on our YouTube channel as well. You can like our videos, you can comment, you can subscribe, get all of our weekly podcasts in video format here. And then footballgoons.com, you're going to want to be there all week long. Obviously tomorrow morning, the pod will be available there. Wednesday, we'll have our Goons, Ghosts, and Daily Picks for week 15. And then Thursday morning, we'll have our updated fantasy ranks for week 15 available, all for free, footballgoons.com. We'll catch you guys next time.